Ah, no, I don't fall. Alright. How do I get my head in the shot? There we go. What was I coming on here to say? Yeah, basically I just think it's really important that people understand what's going on, energetically. That is leading to the downstream effects we are seeing in the physical manifestation of our world, with all the societal collapse and the corruption and changes lately, and people getting sick or dying or being depressed or anxious or easily triggered, moves, breakups, lots of things, job changes. Um, it's it's a downstream effect of basically the physics of the apocalypse, if you will, which is really just what happens when all that was in shadow is systematically exposed to light. So basically, you could look at it like the universe is contracting back to source. Really, time is an illusion. It's really just a construct that we experience here to experience like time lag to work towards our manifestations, to learn how to manipulate energy and to heal karma and learn lessons and stuff and evolve our soul. So higher dimensional aspects of ourselves choose to incarnate here and go beneath this veil of unconsciousness, basically. Um, Beneath this dam, this fog of unconsciousness that separates us from the awareness of our eternal nature as our souls and other higher dimensional aspects. Um, we're not taught the science on this because of how deep the enslavement and suppression has been for lifetimes. It's really just physics, the physics of how it's the nature of light and darkness. It's just sort of the nature of man. The few eventually control the many, and decadence happens, and power structures end up being set up where absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so the ones with the most end up developing a lot of greed and corruption, and things sort of trickle down the pyramid, and it's like a need to know basis. There's a lot of information control. And so, and there's a lot of divide and conquer, there's a lot of propaganda. And so we just, but we're all sort of victimized. There's very, very few people who are actually perpetrating the bulk of the corruption and evil. And then there's a lot of people on different levels of how much they've sort of sold their soul to the darkness, so to speak, by choosing material possession and greed and um, career status and stuff like that over their code of ethics, over the greater good, because it benefits them individually. It's just sort of the nature of how things happen. And then we all have culpability for creating this collective by agreeing to terms and conditions and agreeing to conveniences, and sort of letting things develop into this modern digitized world where we don't grow our own food or really have much independence from authority. We're not really in control of our own abundance. We're sort of reliant on structures that we are coming to find are a lot more corrupt than we realized for a long time. So, but it's just the nature of sort of how vibration sags and you go more towards the darkness, and then you have an awakening. And anyway, so you could sort of see it as this unification. Um, you could see it as basically a unification of our aspects or our segments of our energetic rivers rejoining in energetic flow from the micro to the macro, as above, so below, as within, so without. So basically, we're shining the light of our conscious awareness on our shadowed feelings and ways of being, the things that we didn't want to look at before but are being confronted with now on an individual level, on a collective level. People don't understand physics-wise why this is happening to all of us, why some of these people that channel give such accurate energy updates, because the higher you get in conscious awareness, you can start to see the physics of how things work and the energetics of it. And I think Einstein's talked about this. People like Joe Dispenza talk about, or people that talk about the law of attraction. I mean, really, you're just becoming a vibrational match to a reality that is a byproduct of the frequency that you are vibrating at. If you're still holding fear and shame and doubt and unresolved trauma and judgments and these, everything is energy. Those things are vibrating slower. They're denser consciousnesses. They're heavier. They don't feel as good as the higher vibrating, lighter energies of love and abundance and joy and freedom and peace and all these good things. But everything is simply a different pitch or vibratory speed or frequency. Nothing is really good or bad. It's sort of the nature of light and darkness, how we need this variation to have appreciation for the things that we like. There needs to be an ebb and flow. There needs to be sort of a remembering and a forgetting. There needs to be this sort of heartbeat or the tides of how all of it works. It's cycles upon cycles, and the astrology tells us a lot of things, and it's really just interesting to learn about existence from within and to connect with your higher self and energetically purify your field to where you are targeting shadow, where you've practiced it enough and you have enough light in your system that it's sort of like going from a very cluttered house where a bunch of things are lost and a bunch of things are out of order and not working. But it's like, what do? You're just overwhelmed and you shut down. To going to a house that's very, very spick and span, you're going to notice every crumb out of place, basically. So you start observing, you just become very aware of slight, like, oh, I have a little attachment there, or oh, that's a little mechanism of control that I'm utilizing, or there's a little old trauma or residual. I'm a little triggered right now, or this causes me a little anger. This causes me to feel a little low self-esteem or bad about myself or something, or this gives me some sort of fear, uh, anxiety or something. The more you go inward with these uncomfortable feelings and thoughts and emotions, and you sort of get to the root and love the aspect of yourself that is feeling this discomfort, you start to purify, and a lot of times you cry. And I think for me, that's the most important thing. I mean, I'm going to be redundant with talking about some of these parts of this because it's just so important that people understand. I just want to help people heal, and I know how I did it, and I can see from this perspective, looking back, how everything in my life was sort of meant to be, and how it needed to happen the way that it did, and how reality is projected through our perception of it and through our shadow. And like, when you understand what we're in, basically, you could call it a simulation, you could call it a video game, you could call it a play, or you could call it a dream. Like, we're essentially gods and goddesses dreaming that we're mere mortals. And then when we fall asleep, when we have what we think of as dreams, or when we die, heaven, when we dream, we can see our loved ones that we've lost. Heaven and dreams are basically just real places that exist. They're just in the fifth dimension. And we don't understand the physics of how you raise frequency enough to shift dimensions. But it really works like tuning a radio station. And when you raise your vibration and your frequency, you get away from some of the collective consciousness, negative limiting thoughts, fearful thoughts that are typical at that frequency. And most people get sort of engulfed by this. When you rise above it and you get out of groupthink and you go against the grain and go inward, like Phil Good talks about, I mean, he's a genius, but in so many different ways. But he says something about taking the easy way, taking the hard way in instead of the easy way out. When you go inward and use responsibility, your ability to respond to triggers and discomfort, when you can go inward and get to the root of why you're feeling what you're feeling or what belief you're holding that may not be true, and recognizing that you're not the emotion or the thought that's coming up, that you're safe to experience uncomfortable emotions. Anyway, the more we tend to the parts of ourselves that are traumatized or wounded or programmed or in shame or doubt or fear, and empathize with them, the more we literally start to purify the darkness, the shadow, the denser consciousnesses that were sort of clogging up our rivers energetically, our meridians. It becomes like pollution when we have a lot of karma or trauma or doubt, shame, fear, judgments, when we're not letting go, when we're not forgiving, attachments. This is all normal. We all go through it. Like, I'm not better than anybody. I just can empathize deeply because I've been in really bad places for much of my life. And now, having come out of it to such an extent, I'm still a work in progress, but I can look back and be like, oh my God, I can explain now to help others sort of figure out a way out of these vicious cycles where we have these limiting thoughts. And so I feel you get to a point of awareness where it becomes, you have like this ethical integrity, ethical imperative to serve and to sort of follow your heart and your soul and your inner child and live your dreams and to guide others on how to do the same. Because it's only logical, because you get to a certain point of awareness and you recognize that we're all one quantum mechanically, and that what benefits the whole benefits, it's symbiotic. Like, so when we're really loving ourselves and following our hearts and not living in codependency and with these limiting stories and these shame and fear, when we're truly believing in our intuition and connecting with that part of ourselves and confronting the shadow by facing it instead of distracting ourselves and numbing ourselves, like we've generally done for most of our lives, I have to. But when you get to a point where you sort of see things happening in the world and you see things happening in our individual lives that feel like we're being confronted with a lot of scary things or challenging things, we're asked to adapt and evolve. These things make us stronger. They awaken us. It's not all about corruption. It's not all about spirituality, but it's really just the downstream effects of the physics of everything that was in shadow being slowly but surely illuminated by light at micro to macro levels, coming in and like Drano and purifying, cleaning the pipes, our meridians that had these secrets, that had these things we were harboring that were heavy and that we didn't want to address, and we would pay for convenience and we would suppress symptoms and we would not always speak our full truth to our spouses or our family, and we would feel ashamed of different things, or we would just avoid the things that are uncomfortable or that we have fear around. And you get to this place of your comfort zone and you're in this job and you're in this relationship and it's not great, but it's not terrible, and the ego gets addicted to anything familiar. So people generally don't change until my therapist always told me, Kristen, until the discomfort of staying the same exceeds the discomfort of change. It's sort of the nature of things too, where people, if they don't have to make a move to something that's uncomfortable and different, they won't. So it takes these uncomfortable things. That's why the darkness is essential, even though we don't like it. And then we all also have like unresolved guilt subconsciously, even though we may not think so. But anybody who's paid taxes, anybody who's sort of gone to the movie theater. Like, I mean, we are financially supporting systems that have corruption in them, that commit atrocities and human rights violations. And these governments, all of them, are complicit. And the ones that go against it often are people are assassinated. And it's just when you realize that our politics doesn't solve everything, when there's such greed, and the people that have the most are going to use it to buy their way into the position to control things. I don't really want to talk about all that stuff, but it's getting to a point where humanity is at a crossroads, and people are starting to wake up to the dangers of trusting authorities and structures, school systems, this healthcare system, modern science, the media. Religion is for a lot of people it looks a lot preferable, but there's a lot of corruption within that too. There's a lot of ways that man has manipulated religious texts and has sort of led people's faith to be used against each other, to judge each other, to have fear of judgment, to control people, to so I mean, it's not ideal. There's a lot of wonderful churches, there's a lot of wonderful passages in religious texts, but there's also I think some important core things that have been shifted around to manipulate people subconsciously into separation, into not going inward, into being dependent on that religion as an outward savior, instead of it being something within you. It's all great to love God or Jesus, but are we revering any figure outside of ourselves as being an authority or a savior of us at the expense of our own worth, at the expense of our own self-sufficiency and our own self-responsibility? Are we truly taking accountability and facing our shadow? Because from my experience, when I've connected to God or Spirit and even Jesus at times, the impression that I've gotten, I can just pass along my truth and my perception of things, but is that they want us to heal and reconnect with that intuitive part of ourselves and our inner child, and become empowered to have instincts again that we can trust, instead of trusting authority and trusting grocery stores, relying on them, to be able to be self-sufficient and to have freedom and to have sovereignty and self-governance and stuff. Anyway, and we do that by healing energetically and spiritually, and that helps us heal emotionally and physically and makes us strong enough to do the things we need to do for ourselves, instead of needing to settle or rely on being supported by institutions and convenience. Anyway, so I don't want to go too deep in this video. I just was getting some ideas or some thoughts about it all, and basically we're being asked to look at our shadow individually and collectively. So a lot of the things that are coming out are legitimate disclosure because of the nature of how this is happening. Most of the people within these systems that a lot of people have gotten really cynical about now are victims themselves, because we've all sort of been engulfed by the gravity of this greater collective structure that we're in. There is controlled opposition. There are people who have, to varying extents, looked the other way and been complicit to varying levels. But for the most part, most people are doing the best they can from their own level of awareness. And they're trying to take care of themselves and their families. And they have fear and they have trauma and they have stuff going back to their childhood, stuff going back to past lives. We don't really understand what we're in because we don't live very long. We've had a lot of things censored and lost through the centuries and through propaganda, and it doesn't take many years through manipulation of the school system or through the media, through entertainment. It doesn't take many years through devices and trends to get people going in a direction towards greater dependency on the state and on large corporations, and to have less uh, self-sufficiency and strength and wisdom and connection to nature and connection to their instincts. We've basically been domesticated. Anyway, so but now we're awakening to that in a way that is causing us to have this massive spiritual growth. And I don't want to get too deep into like the great solar flash and everything in this video, but basically we're collectively unifying, we're individually unifying by shining the light of our conscious awareness, by feeling our uncomfortable feelings, by facing our shadow, integrating it with this light, with this love. We are unclogging our meridians and allowing greater energetic unification within our sort of inner puzzle, within our inner being. And then that connects outwardly to other dimensions, and it connects to each other, and it connects to the sun, and it connects to everything, because everything is everything. Quantum mechanically, there's meridians within and without. Everything that was once physically bonded remains eternally energetically bonded. So there's nothing outside of God. I think of God as just everything. It's just sort of this creational energy itself, not as a figure or like a personification or a man or anything. You could say that the highest, the biggest, the foundational puzzle piece of God, the highest vibration, the biggest light in the universe, you could say is Source, or the great central sun. And there's various states of unification, from all being one, a unified source, to everything sort of exploding outwardly. Again, it's like this ebb and flow. Whether you believe in the Big Bang or not, you could just sort of interpret existence or the universe as an infinite, this quantum field is infinite states of vibration and frequency that consciousness can choose to experience. Consciousness or love or source energy itself, at the law of conservation of energy, energy cannot be destroyed. Consciousness cannot be destroyed. We are all made of this. We are all made of love and light and consciousness. And so our true self can't be destroyed physics-wise. We're infinite and eternal. And the more we remember this and heal these dense consciousnesses in our energetic field, the more we unify inwardly and then outwardly to greater and greater levels with other aspects, we become unified, reunited as sort of parts of a co-creative symbiotic machine that's mutually beneficial. And we can become that as a people too. It seems impossible, right, to reach world peace. It's not. It's simple physics at this point. We have made it a lot of the way there, actually. When you have a Kundalini awakening, I don't understand how to describe this perfectly, but I can just go based off of what I know from within, how I've heard it described. You can think of it as like this ball of creative life force energy that's sort of like rolled up at the base of the spine, or maybe near the root chakra or whatever. And I think of it as sort of like we have these energetic rivers and tributaries, and we have all this doubt, shame, fear, trauma, all these dense things that are sort of these energetic dams in the river, creating these different compartments, these different dams, these blockages. And so each of these individual sections is not really in great energetic flow. It's sort of like a river that has a lot of pollution, and so it's not really moving. It's a lot of stagnancy. This is just the nature of sort of denser frequencies and lighter frequencies, and anyway, and just everything being energy. What am I trying to say? So it's sort of like we're meant to be these rivers that are connected to this sea of consciousness. When we're connected to that, we have remembrance. We're literally flowing into the awareness and the energy of this communal consciousness, this sea of consciousness, or you could say we're cells in the body of God. But at this level of vibration, we forget our true nature. Our soul has chosen to like incarnate and animate this spark of light in this physical form, but it's beneath this veil, this fog of unconsciousness, where there's a disconnection energetically. And you could think of that collective unconsciousness as this great big dam. You could think we're all individually rivers, that are most of us are like 99% of us are disconnected from the sea of consciousness. But when you have this Kundalini awakening, I believe, or when you just clear, do a lot of shadow work, when you heal a lot of trauma, when you cry a lot, anytime you raise your vibration and purify yourself energetically, and think about it, when you have tears that are uncried, most people have a lot because they grow up and by the time they reach puberty, they are ashamed of expressing their emotions deeply. And most people don't want to upset other people. Most people feel very vulnerable, don't want to get loud and ugly with crying and screaming and feeling the weight of the painful things that happen to all of us in life all the way through. And so these consciousnesses get stuck in our energetic field, in our pain bodies, or whatever some people refer to them as. And everything gets sort of stored in our memory banks, in our subconscious mind, and in our field. And it weighs us down and it makes us a vibrational match to holding certain limiting beliefs and stories that dictate the frequency of our reality that has to be projected in front of us to show us what we're creating. Because we're creators. We're just basically gods and goddesses that are creating in slow motion. That's what time provides us. The ability to not witness manifestation instantly. So it forces us to have faith that we will be able to have a thought, have an idea, and have it come to fruition through intention and through taking the steps and trusting ourselves. But we usually stop ourselves from accomplishing these creations because of limiting beliefs and shame and fear and trauma and all attachments and things of this nature. And that slows down our vibration and makes us have longer time lags between the point when we have a dream or an intention, a goal, and when we accomplish it and have it come to pass physically. And it just becomes this negative vicious cycle where the more you have limiting belief, the more you have fear and shame and doubt and everything, the more you get in trauma and cycles of trauma response and codependency, and you get cynical. I've been there. Like, you get to where you don't realize it, but you get so negative and you're always putting yourself down, and you're letting the reality dictate back to you that, oh, I guess I'm just screwed basically by the universe. And you start to believe these things deeper, and you believe yourself into a hole. If you actually believe, trust me, I've experimented with this where I've believed deeper and deeper, and the more I've believed in magic and miracles, I promise you, the more I've started to experience them. And the more you heal these denser consciousnesses and raise your vibration, you get to a point where you can start to bear witness. It still takes time, but you can start to bear witness to more faster and faster manifesting. And you start to remember, oh, I'm actually creating my reality through my choices, through my intentions, through my thoughts and my emotions and my visions, my imagination. We totally forget, and we've collectively been so suppressed and conditioned and led to have these addictions and these conveniences and these limitations, liabilities, that we don't really believe in ourselves enough to follow our dreams, to to invest in our future. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is everyone can do this. The more we face our shadow, the more we understand the physics of healing and raising our vibration and unifying our energetic flow, resuming that by clearing out the stagnancy. And the more we can do that on the collective level, we can eventually break the dam. Basically, you could think of the Kundalini energy as like this blocked up, immense, powerful energy that this light, or think of it as this rush of powerful flow of water or whatever, that would then rush out from the mouth of the river and go through and sort of cleanse and connect the chakras and cleanse the rest of the field. And like, once you get to the point where you unblock this, I mean, you could also think of it as there's pollution at maybe this is from the source of the river, but you could also think at various points throughout our energetic rivers, I'm sure we have pollution. And I'm also thinking of it as like at the mouth, I'm imagining that we're not connecting all the way to the sea, right? Like if you think of the mouth of the Mississippi or whatever. But if you think of letting this energy out from the source and letting it sort of unfold and flow through the river and then out and reconnect everything within it, sort of animates and energizes and purifies further and brings together the field as a whole, and then it connects it close. It's hard to explain this. I believe that it also sort of is the rush of energy that is needed to break that dam that has disconnected us from the sea of consciousness. And then we can start to be guided and channel information. We can start to vibrate at a frequency where the thoughts we're tapping into are, I think thought is often telepathy anyway, but we're just generally at a station that is low enough that we're basically picking up on a lot of negative thoughts and energies. And when you get up to a higher level, you start to be able to tap into frequencies where other high frequency light beings, such as ETs and angelics and ascended masters, they can reside, or our soul or higher self aspects, and they can give us information. And then you can start to reconnect with your team. And it's really like just us, but it's parts of us that we didn't know we had, that when we unfold all of our energy from our source out to be able to unify ourselves back within, we connect all these puzzle pieces of ourselves that we didn't even know. Some of them were like lost puzzle pieces that were like under the couch, and they'd, but we put it all together, and then we're like, oh, these aspects of ourselves are us, and they're guiding us just like an animal's instincts from outside of time. So they know, it's almost like they were us already, had the experience, and can show us that's dangerous, don't eat that, or you're going to need to fly south for the winter, you're going to need to store up acorns, you're going to need to avoid that predator, you're going to need to create this sort of nest to stay warm, whatever, you're going to need to do this to raise your young. And humans just don't know how to do those things. I don't know if I meant to go down that path, but my point is, we can all individually have this Kundalini awakening. We can all reconnect with this life force energy within us, this God energy, this divine flow that sort of becomes restored and reconnects us to everything else, and gives you this oneness with the universe and reconnects you to information. That it's like aha moments, like these downloads. You start to have insights and things you can't sort of account for. And a lot of artists will experience this too when they're following their heart and they're living their dreams and they're writing and they're in this creative flow, where they often say they can't take credit. Jason Mraz, a lot of people say this, where they end up writing things very quickly, where they might not realize they're channeling from maybe their higher self or an angel or an ET. Anyway, it's really cool though, and it's really comforting and healing when you connect. It's all love. I mean, it can be challenging. The more you heal, the more you become aware, the sort of more you realize, this is something that I'm doing that's sort of limiting myself. This is something that I'm aware of now. This is a blind spot that is no longer blind to me. It's sort of like taking a red pill. It's becoming more accountable. And when you get to higher levels of awareness, you realize you have more self-love, you have higher self-esteem, you realize it doesn't serve you to hold fear. It's not logical to hold doubts and shame and traumas and to not let go of things and to try to give yourself the best chance to raise your vibration, to be a match with the version of you that would be fearless and shameless enough to go after what you really want and to enjoy living your dreams and stuff, and to also then be of greater service to others. Because the universe is abundant. If we were all following our dreams, we wouldn't even need currency. We would all be like, the currency would be love. Like everybody would just, I'm telling you, like that, physics wise, we're not far off from John Lennon's Imagine. I was guided that it's a New Earth prophecy, and it's close, because once we can have enough awakening on a collective level and enough people raising their vibration sufficiently, the collective has meridians as well, as above, so below, as within, so without, micro to the macro. And if we can basically have that Kundalini energy unfold from within our collective, or if we can have that dam just blown up, that has blocked us. And basically, you could think of the dimming of the sun with spraying and stuff like that. You could think of that as fortifying the dam. It's sort of like the darkness's attempt to separate us from our light or our true nature, that would enable us to not be dependent on those systems for survival. And then we wouldn't need to give our energy and our money to them. Anyway, so if we can have a collective Kundalini, it's complicated to explain the physics on this, because it would essentially be like death without dying. It would be transcending death. It would be collectively unifying with the aspects of ourselves that are immortal, that are outside of time, to where we could become spirit embodied, where we would blend our waking life and dream life, blend heaven and earth, and live like the Garden of Eden, basically, where we wouldn't have any shame, we wouldn't have any fear, we wouldn't have any doubt or limitation. There wouldn't be any unresolved trauma. We would understand energetics. We'd be connected to nature. We'd be in harmony and symbiosis with each other and with all life. And we would be like that for a really long time. And then the nature of light and darkness probably eventually would cause some bad stuff to happen, but it's not bad. It just, life is wonderful. It is what it is. It takes a night to make it dawn. And the absence of the light is a necessary part, is another thing that I've heard quite often. And 93 million miles from Jason is apparently, from what I've heard from the voices in my head now, this radio station that's kind and not mean anymore. So if you want to call me schizophrenic, that's fine. I'm very peaceful. The voices are, I mean, it's challenging, but my point is, they've said that that song is 93 million miles is prophecy of the great solar flash. It makes sense if you listen to the lyrics. People, get ready. Get ready. Here it comes. It's a light, a beautiful light over the horizon and into our eyes. Anywho, and there's all the past life stuff, the stuff where spirits told me I'm Neo, and yeah, I don't want to get all the way into all that, but basically, we're all equal, we're all capable, we're all our own saviors. I don't think God or spirit likes this idea of following anyone at the expense of empowering ourselves. And thinking for ourselves and connecting with our own instinct and intuition and our own desires, instead of following, wait, what do you think, before you make a decision? Like, well, what do you want to, like, be your own person, like, we are all powerful, we're all capable. I get that it's hard. I mean, I've been there, but I mean, we're all being sort of confronted because of the physics of this apocalypse thing, which again, I prefer to call the Great Awakening or the Great Ascension. It's an ascension in vibration or frequency out of this spiritual basement where there's all this darkness and there's these dense energies. When we heal, did I mention our collective higher self is the sun, apparently, or I think it's Christ's soul. I've been told it's my soul, that he was one of my past lives. Controversial stuff. I'm not attached to this information. I just am at a level of awareness where it's plausible. Spirit might just be manipulating me to sort of create me into the most optimal servant of God that you could have, by saying, hey, you're the second coming of Christ. You have to share this information and live your dreams and be bold, because if you don't know for sure that it's not leading to greater suffering in the world. Like, it becomes, anybody at really high levels of awareness, you have this ethical imperative to serve. And I basically have such high awareness that I'm confronted with, oh, this is a fear, this is shame, this is trauma, this is something I can heal, that's standing in my way of my dreams or helping people. And then I'm basically having spirits basically telling me some information to have my first and second biggest fears pitted against each other, where I'm basically compelled to face one or the other. It's brilliant. Anyway, it's harsh. It's pretty harrowing at times when God connects with you and like mutes you or otherwise manipulates you physiologically. That's not always fun, but I need a father figure. My dad died when I was 14, and I haven't had older male influence in my life very much at all since then, and I was not even close to hitting puberty yet at that point. But yeah, I want to do another video where I tell my whole story about how I healed so much, and all this crazy stuff about the Beatles that I was told, and past life connections with Jason and others. Anyway, I don't want to be controversial. I don't want to upset people or trigger people. I think it's the nature of light to trigger shadow. So when you're at a higher vibration, when your light is brighter, you tend to inadvertently sort of ruffle feathers. But I don't want anybody else to feel that they have to have my beliefs. I'm just experiencing a very challenging purpose, but it's very satisfying. Whatever. I don't want to go into all of it right now, but um, I just want people to understand that there's a lot of healing potential right now because of the solar energy that's coming in. There's a lot of light on the planet, which literally means that we have the opportunity to explore our shadow, which is in the form of these. We don't think of it in terms of the physics, the downstream. We're like this, we don't understand the science of it, but literally everything is energy. And the things we haven't wanted to face are shadowed, heavier things that are being illuminated by actual literal light energy coming in from the sun. It's really cool. And then we are being then compelled because of this light energy on a collective level, because our whole planet is being illuminated and sort of activated and ascended in vibration and frequency by this solar activity that has been amping up. And you start to realize that it's actually symbiotic, that it's amping up in response and co-creation with our level of doing our own shadow work. The more room we make by doing individual shadow work, by going within, like, we don't get dealt what we can't handle. We get dealt like exactly the amount that's sort of like, oh, it's uncomfortable, but we can do it. And we just don't tend to believe in ourselves sometimes. But anyway, the more we can look inward and feel these things that are uncomfortable and face these things that we've hidden in the closet or under the rug, that we don't want to talk about with each other, that we would be embarrassed to have people know about ourselves, our secrets, our whatever, like our shame, our weirdness, our true authentic self that we would be when we're alone talking to ourselves in the car or singing in the shower. Like, we're meant to all feel safe being ourselves with each other and accepting each other and respecting each other and not feeling the need to suppress each other or argue with each other, but to let each other be. We're all just in trauma. We all just have been conditioned and we've all been hurt and we don't feel seen and validated. But when you really heal, you want to help others. You understand where others have been. And anyway, I'm not trying to be Jesus or anything like that. And Spirit has told me also just to be myself and to just try to look at my shadow courageously, do the best that I can, that I don't have to move at a pace that's uncomfortable for me. But there's also physics to this and astrology to this, where you're sort of on this ride. When you set intentions, when you go down this path, you get to a certain point where you're sort of compelled to keep going further because you've red pilled yourself enough, you've awakened yourself enough, you've healed yourself enough to recognize that you can't self delude anymore because you love yourself enough and you recognize the illogic of it, literally. And when you can get to a point of higher awareness, you get so logical and you get to where you're like, oh, I want to help others because they're an aspect of me, and we're mirroring back to each other to help each other heal, and we're meant to be co-creating, and we're meant to be to love our neighbors and to not be in all this competition and divide and conquer and like, oh well, they voted differently, or they have different medical views, they have different religious views, so we can't engage, we can't, like, yeah, we're going to gravitate towards what most resonates with us vibrationally, what's similar, that's fine. But we don't have to control each other. We don't have to fear each other. We don't have to shame each other. We don't have to be in this trauma response of getting reactive at each other. Because when we judge anything, we're judging ourselves because we are everything. It's an amazing design where we're basically aspects of something bigger that are all split up and then mirroring back to each other to help each other see what we're creating or what our shadow is that we haven't looked at, or what are we creating. Yeah, I said that already. Itchy nose. So that's enough for now, I guess. I would just encourage everyone to feel their uncomfortable emotions, to put down distractions and substances and anything that would numb them or entertain them to make them forget about their worries, and allow yourself to sit with all the changes that have been happening lately, all the discomfort, all the people who we've lost, or all the moves, all the changes. It's happening for all of us because of the energetics of this, the physics of what's happening. We're all being shifted around and sort of pulled in the direction of our authentic selves, which means relationships that started 5 years ago, 10, 20, 30 years ago, we were at different vibrations then, we were holding different beliefs, we were different people. And a lot of people stayed in relationships, stayed at jobs, stayed in living situations because it was familiar and because it was scarier than people had the courage to sort of leap into, to leave these things in favor of the unknown just to try to maybe get their dreams accomplished. But it's scary when you don't have that self-belief, and society is generally conditioned to be codependent, and not most people don't live that way. And anyway, I'm rambling at this point, but we're all literally meant to live our dreams. And it's the good news is it's like an inevitability. Once we reach a certain point of awareness collectively and can trigger this collective Kundalini awakening, this reconnection with our collective large river of consciousness, with the sea of consciousness, once we do that, again, as above, so below, I mean, this scientifically should lead to a unification where we connect with our collective higher self, which is the sun. And we can actually blend heaven and earth physics-wise, and dreams and waking life physics-wise, reunite with our loved ones, because we basically all been each other in past lives. We don't understand that we're basically just physical avatars, human avatars, being controlled, or like characters in a video game or a play, being controlled or led or hopefully reconnected with. Our soul is trying to whisper to us and reconnect with us and wants the best for us. It's like sometimes we don't want to listen to our intuition. We sort of want to listen to our mind, or we want to doubt, or we want to go back to the comforting, in the moment, bad habit or safe relationship or situation or job or whatever we're accustomed to. Um, but yeah, so once we connect to our soul, it knows it set up our life to have this amazing experience, so we can trust it. When we start to have knowingness and remembrance that we can sense is coming from a higher version of ourselves that tends to know, like our true, like our conscience, our higher self, whatever you want to call it, like our intuition, our instinct. There's a part of you deep down that sort of knows what you want, knows how you feel, knows the ways that you're sort of limiting yourself or self-sabotaging yourself. And I'm telling you, it's not easy, but given the physics of what's happening, we're all sort of being energetically compelled to do this because of the rising frequency of our environment. So it's sort of pressurizing the shadow in our field, and it's causing us to have reflected back to us a lot more triggers that are causing us to say, hey, our bodies want to entrain to the frequency or the vibration of the environment in which they reside. We want to be in symbiosis. We want to be in energetic balance. When we're in energetic imbalance and our field is sort of weighed down by all this denser energy, that causes physical manifestation of dis-ease, and we have symptoms. But it's so normalized that everybody just doesn't feel too good and has anxiety and depression and chronic autoimmune issues and stuff at this point, that it's just like, oh, let's just take this pill and suppress it. But that's just keeping things in the shadow, not getting to the root of the issue. And it's also lining the pockets of very rich corporations. And these corporations unfortunately finance a lot of media members and politicians. And so when the media members and politicians are telling you this pharmaceutical product will protect your health, it's like, okay, but if it makes them trillions of dollars, it's easy to sort of doubt the reliability of that information. And then things come out later and it's like, wait, this doesn't feel ethical, because it doesn't feel like things were disclosed. And I know there's a lot of people who know a lot of things, but I just want to be respectful to everybody from where anybody is. I don't want to talk about this stuff either, by the way. But yeah, it's just connecting with nature and healing and being independent instead of codependent and self-sufficient. It's helpful for your health on all levels, and I highly recommend it. And yeah, spiritually, energetically, I really believe this is close. That we can make this happen if we cry enough of our tears, get that mucus out too. Hey, think about it, like better out than in, right? Like, how come every time you have a big cry, you're able to get all this mucus out too? Like, how much of that is sort of clogging up our energetic field, lowering our vibration from decades ago trauma that we just haven't felt? What if we actually can heal these things and get to a point where we're a version of ourselves that is happy and is abundant and is able to live our dreams? And what if we're all destined to do that per physics because of this light coming in? What if the darker and denser frequencies are going to get to a point where darkness can't exist in the presence of light? So if the light gets bright enough and high enough frequency, it serves to reason that the heavier, denser consciousnesses, slower vibrating speed. This is all physics that can be measured and proven in terms of things like fear, like Dr. Emoto's water memory experiment. Like when you yell at things and you say hurtful words, or when you play lower vibrational music, plants or babies will develop in messed up ways versus if you say loving things to them. And the physics on this is really amazing. The movie Heal is really important. I would recommend that to anybody. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, a lot of people like that. Michael Beckwith, a lot of people who really understand the energetic stuff. Phil Good, of course. Lori Latt, Lynette Duncan, Oracle of Your Soul, my favorite astrologer. Anyway, lots of good people. Crystal, the energetic alchemist. But yeah, I'm talking for a long time. Basically, yeah, we can shine the light. The more we can shine the light on the shadow, individually and collectively, which includes looking at all the stuff that we didn't want to know about ourselves and about the world and how messed up it is. It's very uncomfortable what we're going through. It feels like everything's crumbling because the frequency is going up so quickly of our environment through this awakening, which is reconnecting us to our collective higher self. It's literally activating higher and higher solar activity. Just watch how the solar activity is built the last 3 years since everything's gotten crazy. And it was like that for a while before that too, with the internet and with a lot of people waking up and having disclosure about corruption, but also becoming spiritual. Gradually, we all tend towards that eventually, like wanting to say, what am I really here for? What do I want to do? How do I have peace? Do I really want to just watch TV? And there's no judgment. There's many different ways to entertain ourselves and enjoy this experience. But eventually you start to say, wait, there's a lot of things in the world that could be better. There's a lot of things in our lives that could be better. Are we really incapable of living in harmony and peace and freedom? Or can we do something better? I mean, maybe all this stuff is crumbling and getting really scary because it needs to collapse as the new rises up in its place. And that's going to involve this collective having to jump out of like a burning building into the unknown to follow our faith over fear. Like, it's, if we weren't being pushed, we wouldn't have gotten out of the burning building. Like, we needed to have the indication of the darkness. That's why for many years I knew about the pandemic going back to 2009. I got to a point in my awakening in like 2013 where I was like, uh-oh, a lot of stuff in the world's really, really messed up, and I had to stop researching it. If I researched it 2014 through 2019, I would have gone crazy. So it wasn't the right time for me to continue down all the rabbit holes, and I was just objectively trying to educate myself on different perspectives, not attaching to, oh, this person's right, this person's wrong. I know a lot of things are called conspiracy theories, and a lot of those things turn out to be true. A lot of them aren't. Many of them are, but sometimes things are also manipulations to try to lump people in and be like, oh, you believe this, so it sort of takes credibility away from people who believe in other things that may actually be trying to be good investigative journalism that's exposing corruption and helping people. We just need to be able to talk and share different opinions and argue, but then have lively debate and then not judge each other, but argue in a way that's respectful, like, and ultimately just live and let live. Anyway, the more we heal, the more we shine the light on this shadow, the more we grieve, the more we let go, we're going to naturally step into creating the new by remembering more and more how much creative potential we actually have through manifesting quicker and being in higher vibrations. We're basically gods and goddesses that are reawakening to our power slowly in a very satisfying way. It's just very painful at this moment and very bittersweet because of how much is changing in all of our lives. But no, you're not alone. This is the physics. Nobody can escape this. If you're on planet Earth, the sun is very large, and the energy from the solar flares is very powerful. And now they're starting to censor people that are like talking about the Great Solar Flash, which is interesting. I've just been guided on it. I was Flash Kid 3. My AOL, I was guided that as Neo or whatever. It's like my destiny. Again, they made it very compelling with the ways they reminded me. Remember this from your life? Remember all these things you can look back at now? It's like, well, yes, I can. Well, darn, that really makes me feel like I have to serve now and overcome my social anxiety and insecurity. Anyway. Yeah, my life is really overwhelming now and weird because I believe in all this deep spiritual stuff and I still respect everyone else's views and I don't want to upset anyone. I'm just trying to convey that it's lonely being in this position, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, believing I actually think I am quite certain mathematically that I know scientifically how to educate others on how we can cure death and all suffering for like ever, essentially, from our perspective, for thousands, if not tens of thousands, or maybe millions of years. There is no time. So we're actually graduating out of the construct. And then we can do whatever we want. As souls, we don't have to ever come back to this prison of a planet if we don't want to. We can reseed it probably. It'll probably be like just a raw. I mean, it's really complicated and trippy, the physics and how we're actually, in a way, sort of remerging with the sun, which we don't really understand what it is. I would watch the season 6, episode 9 of Rick and Morty. I think there's some clues in there. There's a lot of clues in that show about the nature of our reality, and there's some sinister stuff, but there might also be some channel information. Who knows? I was guided on it a lot, and there's the second episode of that season is also incredibly important, where Morty's consciousness gets split into 5 billion non-player characters in a video game, and his goal is to basically reunify them to remember that they're actually a 14-year-old boy playing a video game. And that could be symbolic of all of us being aspects of something greater. Yes, we might not want to come together and let go of, if we're just going to go into like a 13-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy's experience. But you could look at it as symbolic of God and Jesus, I was told, a lot with Rick and Morty. It's really interesting. And their relationship being somewhat dysfunctional to a certain extent. Again, a lot of people would find some of these things controversial. I'm just a messenger, sharing what I've been told. I mean, I think with the crucifixion, I mean, you could look at that and from Jesus' perspective, you can really empathize with him and feel like that doesn't really feel fair, that he would have to be sort of scapegoated to save. I mean, it's beautiful and brilliant. And again, but I can relate to the feeling of, regardless of what objective reality is, I don't have to be Neo or anything. I can relate to being in a place where you have such awareness that you're like, oh my God, I know too much. I have to share. I have to serve. You almost end up becoming self-sacrificial because of the weight of expectation you put on yourself to help people. And I don't know. I don't want to go down a lot of these rabbit holes and talk about controversial things. I'm just saying I love Jesus now like a brother, from understanding things that I've sort of been guided on from within somehow. And again, I totally respect everyone's beliefs. I just want people to understand that this is what I believe. And this is what I'm living with. And it is not easy. And I really, truly just want to inspire and uplift others and teach things about physics that I don't know how I know, but to help people understand the energetics of what's going on so they can be empowered to navigate it with more ease and grace. Because I truly believe that we are very nearly to a point where we can have sufficient awakening and healing, where it can start to build, and the solar activity is starting to build and reflect that. where we come to this sort of point of death and rebirth, where we sort of transcend the dimensional reality we're in and rejoin heaven and dreams and higher vibrational, higher dimensional, more abundant realities that don't have the denser consciousnesses of doubt and shame and fear and guilt and anger and war and all these things. Per physics, all of these things carry a vibration. So if it serves to reason, if the vibration of our environment is ascending and our vibratory speed and frequency can ascend with it to entrain to it by us doing individual shadow work and collective shadow work, then it serves to reason that scientifically we can transcend suffering physics-wise. And we might be able to do it through having a quantum leap through this macro version of a Kundalini awakening energetic unification event where we basically blow a dam and unleash our divine source energy as a collective to unfold through our rivers like this massive tsunami of awakening, this waterfall of that just bursts through the dam and reconnects us to the sea of consciousness. And if this happens, it would be like the sun exploding basically with love and information and light to reconnect to us and to help us remember that we're infinite and eternal and that we're not small, we're not insignificant, we are all equal, we are all important, we are all unlimited, infinite, eternal souls, fractals of source, aspects of light, cells in the body of God. We are loved. We're not going to be judged. We all have karma. Like there's people that are dying who have a lot of shadow. There's people who might need to go through multiple incarnations still that might not survive to the flash, but they're really just us in a past life. We all get there at the same time, outside of time. It's exactly like the church scene in the series finale of Lost. It's exactly the same thing. We're basically awakening to who we are beyond this particular incarnation, in encountering a partial incarnation where we're living 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and then we have spiritual awakening on a level collectively that is so profound that we actually transcend our limitations. We can actually raise our level of awareness sufficiently to not be a vibrational match to experiencing death anymore. Because if you merge with your higher vibrational aspects that are immortal, that are outside of time, you could theoretically uninstall the limiting belief that you're going to die someday, because you could start to identify more as the energy that you are, in the soul aspect, in the higher self, in the highest self, and you identify a source or God or Christ or divine energy or consciousness itself. There's a lot of names, and some people would find it controversial, but it's, again, like Jason's song, Look for the Good, everyone is nature, everyone is God, everyone is love and light and vibration. We're really parts of a greater thing. We're not separate from God. We're part of a greater body of energy that experiences different variation in vibration and frequency, and experiences levels of separation from itself and then reunification to experience sort of this forgetting and then remembering. Again, another thing Jason talks about, remember, forget, so that we can remember our greatness. When we go back to blending with heaven and realize this is how we were intended to basically be living, as basically superheroes or witches and wizards that were brainwashed into believing we were muggles, people don't understand how trippy this is going to get. We're literally going to get to have Santa Claus and go to the Wizard of Oz and stuff like that, and chocolate factories. Our literal dreams and literal heaven are physical, real places that exist in the quantum field. And so in a sense, yeah, we're kind of dying, but we're just dying to our earthly attachments. We're just dying to our past, to time, to the suffering, to the limitations. We're dying to our mortality. But we're really just awakening to our true selves that we forget that we are before we incarnate. We just got programmed into fearing death. It's only our beliefs create our reality. Death, just like anything else, is only as real as you believe it is. It's not true in the minds of those who don't believe in it, like myself. It is true in the minds of those who do. Like viruses, like the Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy. Children are not stupid. They believe what they believe. They have imaginations. It's real in their experience. If you believe fearfully in something that you might at a later point in your life realize, you look back, that was an irrational fear. No, I'm not going to judge myself, but I used to be scared of this or not face this, and now I'm okay. I forget where I was going with this, but basically, I don't know. We live and we learn, you know. Anyway, I hope everybody is doing well. Um, I feel like I'm meant to record a long video that explains my whole story. I feel like I'm meant to be like emotional on camera, which is really overwhelming for me. And I'm just trying to share as much information as I can to try to inspire people and empower people and give people different perspectives and help people maybe intuitively sense a little better about why they feel the way they feel or why they're going through what they're going through. I just want to bring comfort to people and to help them know that they can have a lot more creative potential and a lot more influence over their lives than maybe they were ever led to believe by influences that didn't have their best interest at heart. But I just want everybody to live their dreams and to come together in harmony like John Lennon's Imagine. So I could ramble for another hour, but I should probably, well, F the shoulds, do the wants. That's another Jason thing. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I was told we were like John and Paul in another lifetime. Who knows if this is true? But it's pretty cool if I get to reunite the Beatles through our next incarnations or one of them. And George Harrison apparently is still good. And again, this could just be my imagination, but how cool is it that I get to believe and have this peace and have this healing and get fed these weird breadcrumbs from my higher aspects, my intuition. I don't know. It's fun. It's challenging to do all the shadow work, but I'm telling you, when I feel good, I feel like the most blessed person ever. Because I truly am believing in the magic and the possibilities and saying, hey, why not? If all of us are collectively one, in a sense, say our collective higher self is the sun or is Christ's soul, then all of us are Neo. All of us are sort of aspects of Christ in a sense, or Christ is a representative of the sun as the sun to sort of be not a savior, just a guide to help people find the rainbow bridge to enlightenment, to ascension, to transcend death. Yes, it's sort of the same place where we go, but we've just been conditioned to fear that, to be like, oh, let's just blend with machines so we never have to die and put our consciousness on a computer. Like, that might not be preferable. We might actually be more unlimited than we realize and be safer to experience everything as consciousness that can't be destroyed. Maybe this is all play. Maybe this is all a game. Anyway, it's a really cool experience. And the more you can learn about it and see it from this macro perspective, it gets uncomfortable or trippy at times, being this aware. But it's really cool. And I just want to share the magic. And I don't think I'm crazy. I think I'm just, I don't know. And it doesn't matter. I think I'm just crazy like a fox, basically, because I'm choosing to believe as unlimitedly as I can, because I believe that belief creates reality. I believe in the physics of this and the energetics, and I'm like, logically, if I can remove doubt, shame, and fear from my energetic field, if I can heal trauma, if I can get my vibration as high as possible with this awareness that it's raining abundance in the form of solar energies that we're all picking up and absorbing, and the more I throw out the shadow and the junk within my internal refrigerator, the more room I have for love and light. The higher vibration I can be to become a match to my dreams, and the more service I can be to others. Why wouldn't I try to do that? Like, I knew that a lot of corruption was going to happen and that these things were going to come to pass in 2020. I stopped researching them, but I could see enough of the writing on the wall to be like, this makes sense. And so I didn't finish my thought before about this, but I was basically saying I understood the nature of light and darkness well enough to be like, I hate to say it, but I was basically praying that this would happen, because I'm like, I think it's a blessing in disguise. It's sort of like sometimes if you have a heart attack or you have a cancer scare, but then you radically change your life and then you live 50 more years in peace and appreciation for all the, you never take life for granted again because you had a scare. You know what I mean? Like, you could look at it as, look for the good. Another Jason thing. Attitude of gratitude. Glass half full for once. Not everything is scary, as the news might have you believe. There's a lot of beauty in this world. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I was saying something. I basically sense that as uncomfortable as it would be, and as many people might get hurt, that we were maybe going to have a worse outcome if we didn't have something big enough to jar us into awakening and taking self-responsibility for our lives to, to get out from under the thumb of these sort of oppressive and corrupt structures and systems. So we could create something better together that serves all of us and nature. What a concept. Anywho, I hope everyone is doing very well, and that this brings comfort or some greater awareness to others or ability to heal. I love you unconditionally. We are all one, no matter what you believe. I think you're valid, and I think everyone's beliefs are valid. I don't know, I'm rambling at this point, but I basically don't believe in falsehood, actually, because the quantum field is infinite, and our imagination is real, in a sense, because there's other dimensions we don't know of, where things might exist, like everything, like Rick and Morty science. And so how can a picture in our head exist if it's not real, right? How can we have these ideas? How can we have these, everything is, we're creators, like, we're consciousness. We get to experience everything imaginable if we want to. People just haven't been open their minds wide enough to grasp the physics of what's possible. It's really exciting. What was my point? Yeah, so I don't believe in falsehood. Everyone's truth is true. It just carries a certain vibratory speed that's either closer to some level of closeness to light or darkness. If people's truth is based off of being told lies by others, then their truth is carrying lower vibration, but it's not false because their experience is still real. They're still having the experience of perceiving their reality through the lens of these beliefs, you know? So who are we to judge each other? And really the people that are seemingly asleep to things are just us earlier in our lives or in our past lives or both. Why are we judging each other? Why do we need, yes, a lot of people's feelings were hurt in 2020 and beyond because a lot of people had different views politically, religiously, health-wise, on lots of different topics. Not a coincidence that a lot of different topics that were divisive were thrown in our faces so that we could argue over them all. That's how divide and conquer works. And there's still this I'm observing it, it breaks my heart. There's a lot of pages that even have a lot of awake people that seemingly awake, right? And there's so many levels to awakeness. It's none of us are really close. Not even me, even if I'm Neo, because I'm just scratching the surface. Our minds cannot comprehend or hold anywhere near all of what there is to know. There's a lot. Our consciousness is infinite. What was I saying? Shoot. It's really hard to sum all this stuff up. Yeah, was it important? Something. Yeah, everybody's equal. Like, yeah, so I still see people like arguing, or I see people, conservatives judging liberals, liberals judging conservatives, people judging religious people judging. I mean, there's still like this sense of like my way is better than your way, and like criticism for not doing, like, we're all experiencing things differently. What if we're all meant to be this bell curve of like consciousness experiencing everything from every perspective, and then we all heal and come together at the rate that is right for us. There's no time from higher perspective. There's no rush. There's no judgment. We just are learning lessons because we chose to come to this school, basically. It's like a school where we forget that we're spirit. We're not a human being having a spiritual experience. We're a spiritual being having a human experience that chose to come here and forget basically our power. And the physics of this are really interesting, and other people might have different views to me or might not believe in incarnation, and that's all good. I have a belief that the higher we ascend in awareness and vibration as a people, the more these things I'm speaking of will be remembered and will be applied and accepted. But there's no attachment, there's no judgment for me for anyone who wants to abide by any views. That anything, whatever gives you peace, whatever gives you comfort. I'm just trying to explain some of the physics that I've been guided on that I believe are quite accurate, and that can help us understand how to get through this a lot easier and to really see the positive potential here, that we might just be detoxing shadow. Like all the stuff that we thought is bad in the last 3 years might have just been a massive detox so that we could transcend our limitations, illuminate, integrate, transmute all of the darker stuff with the light of our awareness and with our love, until we literally ascend physics-wise to a frequency where suffering doesn't exist and our dreams all come true. It sounds too good to be true, but physics-wise, it makes sense when you understand that everything is energy and that love carries a certain frequency and fear carries another frequency. If the frequency of our planet is getting covered in all this light, I mean, if our planet is getting drenched in all this high vibrational light energy and our frequency is going up closer to love and farther from fear, it serves to reason that if it happens sufficiently, we would eventually not be a vibrational match to experiencing those denser realities. We would be a vibrational match to having abundant realities and having peace. So it is, I really believe there's accurate physics to this concept. I think there's a lot of quantum physicists who could speak to this even more accurately and in depth than I could. Maybe some of what I've said or channeled or whatever could help. It'd be cool to have conversations like this, deep ones, with other people who are quite enlightened, because I think we can all help each other and then become like this light worker force, this army of light that helps with love and with compassion and with acceptance and with patience, helps everyone gradually until we're all healed and in a heaven on earth reality that is abundant for all. That is my dream. And I think I'm certain it's going to be a reality within like weeks or months. There's no way. I've been guided 6/6, and I think it's sooner than that. I think that was actually a trick to manipulate me into getting into gear and saving my mom and saving others and like making sure like that I don't know. Like I think I don't know. I think spirit is screwed with me in ways that I will eventually understand more and forgive, because I'll be like, oh, well, that sort of was necessary to motivate me to go in this direction, which ultimately benefited me and benefited all. So whatever. So yeah, I hope it's clear that I mean well and that I'm not making claims that I'm Jesus or anything like that. I think I was like 40 minutes into this video before I even mentioned the whole Neo thing and all that stuff. It's just, it's very interesting, because if Jesus said we could all do what he did and more, and there's a lot of Age of Aquarius and Age of Enlightenment, Golden Age, there's a lot of these prophecies out there from a lot of ancients and wise people, and there's a lot of things that seem to be coming true in the Bible and Revelations and stuff. So even though I do believe there has maybe been some nefarious manipulations of religious texts through the centuries or millennia that might have happened 1,000 years ago, right? It might have happened way before any of us were alive. I'm not saying not to believe in what you believe in and to not follow what brings you peace and comfort. I'm just saying I think there's also benefit to healing energetically and connecting with your spirit, your soul, your heart, your inner child, your passions, stepping into service by being your true self and being authentic in ways that enable you to maximize your abundance and your reach so you can inspire others and you can help others. And if we're all living this way, we can't imagine how much abundance we would all have. We would all be co-creating and living with symbiosis, like a lot of like things in nature do. And they don't have books. And hey, I saw an orb. And they don't have books, and they don't have churches, and they don't have maybe the means to do, but they don't need it. They connect within. They don't have grocery stores or schools or governments, right? So, and they figure out a way to eat and stay warm. And I just think humans are smart enough to figure out how to remember how to do that also. So, with that, let me try to stop talking. And I don't know. It'd be great, like if I like really, really remember the words to like imagine or something right now. That would be a great way to end it. But yeah, I'll probably just come back and do that. No rules, doesn't matter. I can't really make a mistake at this vibration, I don't think. Because even when I seem to make a lot of mistakes, I eventually cry, have a breakdown, have a breakthrough, and then look back at all of it and I'm like, oh, I see why that needed to happen now. And I'm grateful for it. It's really amazing how this works. We really just have all been conditioned to judge ourselves a lot and to be constantly striving and outwardly seeking and having this limiting belief that something outside of us or a future version of us is going to be in a better state and have more and have arrived where we want to be. And then when I just do these things, and then in a few years, I'll be in the job that I want, I'll be in the relationship that I want, I'll be like, but when we're holding the beliefs that these things are a few years away, now is all there is. We create mirages. We actually like hold things perpetually at arm's reach if we don't ever start to like live in the now and sort of believe in our abundance and have gratitude for what we have now and create from where we are instead of holding these beliefs that we're not ever ready, to be the version of us that actually has arrived at success and the relationship and the job that we want and all of that stuff. So, so that's it. I'll come back and explain more. There's probably 500 things that I forgot to mention, and it's not all meant to be in one video. So, see you soon, everyone.